What's better, bankruptcy or debt consolidation? Find out today on Bankruptcy Basics. Welcome, everyone. My name is Patrick Best. I'm a bankruptcy attorney at Arm Lawyers, and I'm also the author of the Essential Bankruptcy Survival Guide. So if you'd like a copy of that book, I'm going to put a link in the description. We do give away copies for free if you're interested. Today, we are going to be talking about the differences between debt consolidation or debt settlement and bankruptcy. There's a lot of misconceptions that surround the concept of bankruptcy. People like to think bankruptcy as a scarlet letter. You'll hear people tell you, don't file bankruptcy, it'll hurt your credit, don't do this, don't do that. Try debt consolidation or try debt settlement. In many cases, in almost every case, this is the worst possible option for you. And we're going to talk about why. So there's a few things that people don't realize about debt settlement when they start these contracts. So the first thing is they're going to change your address. They're going to want to be notified of everything. So they're going to change all the notification addresses with all of your creditors to their office. Sounds great. You're not going to get anything in the mail. You're not going to get phone calls. This is lovely. I'm not getting those late payment phone calls anymore. Here's the problem. You're also not going to know when bad things happen to you. You're not going to know when they sue you. You're not going to know there's a judgment against you. And while it's wonderful to think that they're going to tell you that this stuff is happening, my clients who come to me many times after having already tried this process will tell you otherwise. They will tell you, no, I had no idea I was being sued. I had no idea that this was happening. So problem number one, you normally aren't going to be notified of anything that's happening to you in the future. Number two, there's additional fees. So maybe your total outstanding balance is $30,000, but then the debt settlement company is going to tell you not to pay. In many cases, they're going to tell you, well, you can't pay right now because they're not going to consider settlement unless you're behind. So you're going to have to miss some payments. But when you miss those payments, the credit card companies are going to start tacking on more and more fees. Here come the late fees. Here comes the interest payments. Here comes all these different things that you weren't considering. And now instead of owing 30, you really owe 35. So that didn't really help you either. So be aware of that. The time frame. Most people don't consider the time frame when they start. How long until you're debt free? Well, it could be years. In many cases, debt consolidation or debt settlement can take 2 to 3 years before you have any sort of conclusion, and even then, it may not be the conclusion that you're looking for. Impact on credit score. So I started by telling you that sometimes people consider debt consolidation or debt settlement because they're trying to avoid the negative impact of bankruptcy. There's a problem. There's a big impact on your credit score from debt consolidation too. They just don't tell you that. And it's not any better. It's not like you can go to get a loan later and they're going to say, oh, well, at least it was debt consolidation and it wasn't a bankruptcy. Negative remarks are negative remarks. The problem is that these missed payments from these credit cards, they're going to start marking on your credit report and your score is going to in the toilet very quickly. So that's something you're going to need to consider as well. If you're doing this in order to save yourself the impact on your credit score, this is not the option for you. Next, there's an impact on your credit report. So in addition to the score, there's also going to be these negative things reported on your credit report. Every time you settle a debt, even if you work directly with the lender, it's going to be reported on your credit report as a settled debt. That's bad. It's just as bad as a bankruptcy in almost every case. A lender is going to see debt settled, and you're going to be disqualified from just as many loans. So again, if you think you're avoiding negative credit report or negative credit score impacts by using debt consolidation or debt settlement over bankruptcy, that's not going to be what you're looking for. Next, these companies are not free. And in many cases, they actually charge you more money than a bankruptcy attorney would. The fees are often hidden or not explained, and many times you'll learn that even if you come up with some sort of arrangement where you're going to pay $500 a month for 3 years, that only about 100 of that is going towards your debt payment, which is crazy because that wasn't the point. The point was to get out of debt. So you got to watch for that. This is extraordinarily expensive in comparison to bankruptcy. Next, the lenders may refuse your offers. So while it sounds lovely and you say, oh, I have 30,000, maybe I can negotiate this down to 15. You'll hear people tell you that you can negotiate to pennies on the dollar. It happens all the time. That's often optimistic and ordinarily is not the case. There's a number of lenders that will outright refuse to negotiate in debt settlement. I'm not sure if that's some sort of company policy to try to make it known that if you borrow from us, we're not going to work with you. I'm not 100% sure where that comes from, but I can tell you that I have worked with clients who have been sued by a number of lenders who will not negotiate, will not. So if you're told we can settle your debt for pennies on the dollar, that may not even be true. Tax consequences. This is the thing that people forget. Even if they're successful in negotiating your debt, even if you have, let's say, $30,000 of debt and we were able to wave a magic wand and all of a sudden the $30,000 of debt goes away, you get a 1099 at the end of the year for $30,000 of debt forgiveness income. I have people come to me all the time after this has already occurred. They settle the card or two and they get the 1099s from those lenders. Do I have to pay taxes on this? Yeah, you do. You have to pay taxes on it. That's something to consider because in bankruptcy, you don't. In bankruptcy, any debt that's forgiven or discharged through bankruptcy, there's no tax consequence to. So when we tell you we can get rid of your debt in bankruptcy, we could, and there's no tax consequence to it. The next thing that people forget or don't realize is that you're not paying your credit cards, so these people are going to sue you. Too often people find out a year into the process with these debt consolidation companies or debt settlement companies, they're being sued. As you can imagine, that's bad. It is going to be reported on your credit report. It is going to be filed with your county courts in many cases. So all of these things are bad for you. Bankruptcy actually prevents you from being sued, so you're going to want to consider that. You also many times will end up with a judgment. So not only do they allow you to get sued in many cases under the auspice that they're going to use that lawsuit to try to negotiate, but in many cases you're going to end up with a judgment because they're not actually going to defend you in the lawsuit. If they can't get the negotiation that they want, they just allow the judgment to be entered, which puts you in a way worse position. A lot of my clients who come from debt settlement or debt consolidation come to me because of that judgment. They come to me because they were given a levy or a wage garnishment or something of that nature that has forced them to consider bankruptcy. So you're going to want to be aware of the fact that you can be sued, you can get a judgment against you, there can be a wage garnishment, all while you're in this program, allegedly under the protection of this debt settlement company. It happens all the time. So be aware that that could happen. And finally, normally people who consider debt consolidation or debt settlement end up in bankruptcy anyway, and oftentimes it's after they threw away a lot of money. I have a number of clients who have spent years. I've had clients who tell me, I have been with the debt settlement company for 3 years, paying them $500 a month. You do some quick math on that, they've paid them over the last 3 years $18,000. They come to me, they tell me that the payments are difficult and they're not making any results on their balance. The balance is not going down. We talk about bankruptcy. They learn that for a very quick process, a very low fee, we can get rid of the entire debt, no gimmicks, and they quickly realize they threw away $18,000 by not doing this sooner. They're also stalling the repair of their credit report. Just remember, bankruptcy doesn't ruin your credit forever. We help people rebound. I'm actually going to do a separate video on recovering your credit score after bankruptcy. My clients do it very quickly. We work with our clients to get to a 720 as quickly as possible after the bankruptcy. So again, if that's your concern, it shouldn't be. Now that we went over the issues with debt consolidation, I want to contrast that with bankruptcy for you. So I'm actually going to walk over every one of those issues and compare it to what you would see in a bankruptcy. So starting with notice. Unlike debt consolidation, in bankruptcy, you're going to get notice of everything. From the time you start to the time you finish, you will get a copy of everything that the court sends. Your attorney will get a copy, you will get a copy. Your attorney should also be notifying you along the way, but it's stark contrast from debt consolidation, where it's very black box and everything is hidden. Next, there are no issues with regard to late fees in bankruptcy, because if your debt is going to be discharged, it's going to be discharged. Even if you stop paying your credit cards before filing, which most people do, it doesn't matter. Your debt is going to be forgiven either way. The time frame. In Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you're looking at 3 to 4 months. And that's the most common thing that we would see. So if you are interested in looking at the different types of bankruptcy, Chapter 7, Chapter 13, we're going to do a separate video on that. But more often than not, people are filing Chapter 7, which the process is very quick. That is a big difference from the 2 to 3 years that you would see with debt consolidation or debt settlement. Credit score. Contrary to popular belief, your bankruptcy can actually improve your credit score. I know it's crazy. People don't believe me. But the bankruptcy is actually going to remove negative items. So I told you earlier that in debt settlement, you're not paying your credit cards, and therefore the late payments are being reported to the credit reporting agencies and your score is going to go down. Bankruptcy is the exact opposite. All of those late payments that you would have had are coming off of your credit report, and it's actually going to improve your score in almost every case. Crazy? I know. But most of my clients actually report a 50-point swing. They file bankruptcy, score goes up by 50 points immediately. So, something to consider. Actually leads me to the credit report. The bankruptcy will be reported on your credit report. People get stuck on that thinking, well, can't file. But remember, I already told you that all of these other debt settlements are still going on your credit report and still giving you that negative item. But the bankruptcy gives you all of those positives to outweigh that. So while the bankruptcy itself is going on your credit report, it's removing a lot of the negative items. So you're going to come out ahead on this. In almost every case, the bankruptcy is more beneficial for your credit report than debt consolidation. The fees. Bankruptcies are generally done on a flat fee basis. The attorney quotes a fee, you pay the fee, that's the end. There's no secret fees, there's no hidden fees, there's no surprises. What you're told is the fee is the fee. Additionally, bankruptcy attorneys are very closely supervised by the United States Trustee's Office, the Chapter 7 trustee, the bankruptcy court. All of these people are safeguarding you from people who might be overcharging. So you really shouldn't be concerned with the bankruptcy attorney. Debt consolidation, on the other hand, very secretive. There's very little supervision, and the fees can kind of get out of hand. So when you're comparing the fees side by side, in almost every case, bankruptcy will be cheaper. Lenders cannot refuse a bankruptcy, whereas you could refuse debt settlement. They can't refuse a bankruptcy. People ask me all the time, can my bankruptcy be denied? Is there a possibility this debt won't be forgiven? And if you're qualified, so if the attorney goes through the process of qualifying you for a bankruptcy and they determine that there's no issues, then there's no issues. The only time you're really going to see a problem with the bankruptcy is if you're being fraudulent. So if you've done something you shouldn't have done, you might not want to file. If you are just an honest but unfortunate debtor, you shouldn't have any issues. And any bank can jump up and down and scream about the debt being discharged, but in reality, it doesn't really matter. If the debt is dischargeable, it's dischargeable. The tax consequences, there are none. Bankruptcy is beautiful in the fact that you can have hundreds of thousands of debt, millions in debt forgiven with zero tax consequence, none. So in that way, it's much better than debt consolidation or debt settlement. And as far as lawsuits or judgments, the bankruptcy stops everything. If you had a lawsuit started before you filed, it's going to be stopped. If you had a judgment before you filed, it's going to be stopped. And in many cases, if you had a lien filed, a bankruptcy can help you get rid of that lien. So in almost every case, the bankruptcy is going to be superior because of all of these issues that we just went with. So if you take everything that you've been told and you're able to set aside the myths, to not listen to your neighbor instead of your attorney, you'll see that the bankruptcy has so many clear advantages, it is almost always better. But if you're concerned that bankruptcy may not be best for you, then I would encourage you to talk to an attorney. Bankruptcy attorneys will tell you if it makes sense for you. It does not make sense for everyone. But if you're considering debt consolidation, it's almost always a better alternative. Well, thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I'm always looking to do videos on new questions that people are asking me, or you can give us a call. Again, contact information will be below. Thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. We'll see you next time.